that in finding a beloved, one dives in to their own deepest level and finds that sacred space where the home of the beloved is in the heart, and then nurtures and nourishes that. And my suggestion from yesterday's webinar was that it's not really possible to find a perfect person. Like in your deepest space, you may picture the beloved, it's just like so perfect. But there's no such thing really as a perfect person. Nobody has every single day isn't a perfect day. Every moment isn't a perfect moment necessarily. We have ups and downs and so forth. They have different influences that come in as we're, learning a lesson, then we learn the lesson, then we're, everything's groovy, I've learned that lesson, but then another lesson comes, and then we're in the learning process. It's like, it's not working, why, what do I need to learn, and then so forth. So these loops are happening, these evolutionary loops are always happening. However, it is possible, there's no such thing as a perfect relationship, no such thing as a perfect person. However, it is possible to find a relationship where the areas of greatest compatibility are most important for long-term stability, and the areas of least compatibility are least important for long-term stability. So what I recommend for those of you who are looking for relationships is to take that principle. The areas of greatest compatibility between me and the other person are best for long-term stability, and the areas of least compatibility, least important for long-term stability. And then take that concept and bring it down deep into the deeper levels of the being, of your heart, in your mind, in your heart, and feel that feeling. Feel that feeling. And what it does is it helps you understand yourself better, because you realize, I can be flexible about certain things. For myself, for example, I used that particular formula when I found my husband, who I'm still married to, thank you, knock on wood, after 25 years, very happily. But I looked deep inside myself and I said, I love to dance. But if my husband doesn't love to dance, that's okay. That's really okay. I can live with that. But if my husband's life goal, his life goals and his spiritual goals are something completely different from mine, that wasn't going to work. And you don't have to decide what's most important for long-term stability. Let nature decide. That's when I was surprised. But it was such a pleasant surprise. All right. So thank you. We already have a question. Oh, my dear. And I'm not going to say any names because I'm letting everybody remain anonymous here, but somebody very dear to me asked this question. My point would be to be able to remain connected to myself and self-sufficient when in a relationship, rather than lose myself in the other and become dependent. Great question. Okay, so there are two things. One is that the beloved is the reflection of one's own love. So if we give the power to feel loved to the other person, then we've given away our own power of loving ourselves. So part of it is that principle to know that there's a sort of sacred relationship that we have with ourselves, that your ability to feel loved, to feel precious, to feel beautiful, to feel adored, must ultimately belong to yourself, even if you have like an amazing partner or friend or husband, someone who's willing to be the mirror of that for you. Remember, they are always just the mirror. However, some of this also comes from letting go the power from the third chakra area, because that's that area where we tend to give that strength away to others. So we're going ahead and checking third chakras for everybody. And what I'm seeing is interesting. I'm seeing in this particular effect a reflection up to the fifth. And that's interesting because if you think of the third chakra as the solar plexus and the fifth chakra as the throat chakra, and then the heart chakra, which is the seat of love, obviously, is right in between those two. What I feel is it's like that all three of these chakras need to clear. And for some reason, especially the throat chakra, and I'm thinking part of this, I've been working with a group of people who are in a weight loss program. And what I found is that we do so much work on this particular area, and probably the principal factor behind those people who are having trouble keeping the weight off their bodies is in this particular area. And one of the reasons is that it has to do with the way we communicate to ourselves, this is a communication center in the physiology. And so there's a certain little internal dialogue that's taking place, and it's very intimately connected to the way we speak to ourselves, the way we refer to ourselves, the things that we say to ourselves, or the things that we think to ourselves. There, even though the thinking process occurs up in the brain, there's definitely an intimate relationship between the throat and how we communicate, and particularly how we communicate with ourselves. A lot of the emotional content in the communication filters right through this fifth chakra. When we're speaking to ourselves, and this question is related to that, how can she stay connected to the self? How can she be established in her own self-love, intimate in her own relationship with herself? Just checking those fifth chakras, everybody. And third, most people are pretty solid, and I'm seeing good, strong astral bodies in the group today as well. People whose ability to self-protect is good, mostly. We've got a few people. So some people are getting an upgrade in the astral body to help them become a little more invincible, a little more resilient to the opinions and the influence from other people, judgments and opinions of others. Right. Because you can say, well, if someone's handing me a harsh judgment, then is it not a reflection of myself? And on some level, it could be that. But remember, when the reflection comes, it's always a gift, because it shows you the area that you can look at so that you can heal that thing in yourself. And when you heal it in yourself, it will not be reflected by the environment from that point on. The environment won't have anything to stick to, the reflection. So still clearing in that fifth chakra a little bit. And I'm seeing all the way at the back of the neck as well. And there's something there. There's something there back going up into the base of the brain stem. Feels like a relationship between self-communication and pleasure. Because we have pleasure centers. I think there's sets of pleasure centers through the brain. I talked about one of them yesterday, but I'm pretty sure there's some back here too, in the brainstem area. And we're opening up meridians between those pleasure centers in the back of the head, and definitely back here in the back of the fifth chakra. And then it's affecting the nature of the communication process, and also the mental and emotional bodies are online here. So lots of material is being cleared from these various areas of the physiology. There we go. Feeling a nice big clearing now of discordant feelings from that area. Wouldn't it be wonderful to address oneself tenderly always? Because we're so familiar with ourselves, we tend to communicate often people, not everyone, but often people will communicate with themselves in a much more kind of just curt and just, blunt, in a much more blunt way. But we're working with the back of people's third chakras right now too, and heart chakras. There's something back there. It's like a point in that chakra system that's sort of very significant, that's sort of more up against the spine. If you feel through your physiology, you'll notice that consciousness isn't distributed evenly through the physiology, but is more concentrated in the brain and central nervous system area than it is at, say, the ends of the hairs or eyelashes or earlobes or whatever. There's more of a concentration of being or consciousness in that central part. There we go. And thank you. I feel like I've got such a great support system going on here, because we've got individuals in the group who are healers, and they're also doing supportive work for everybody at the same time. And I just would like to thank everyone for that. I appreciate you so much. Okay. All right. So now I'm feeling there seems to be more of an upward flow of energy through people's physiologies right now, from that third chakra area up through the body. But one of the things we want to do is we want to get really strong, good energy flows through the entire system, the entire chakra system. So we're now looking down. Yeah, I wasn't expecting us to go this direction, but hey, it's good. So we're looking down into first and second chakras as well. And that's where, so the first thing I'm feeling in these lower chakras is that their nature is to produce energy in a kind of very copious way. There's a lot of good, sort of rich, full-bodied quality of energy in the lower chakras. And so I'm just appreciating that in everybody. And for those who seem to have those energies a little bit shut down, we're opening up remember I've mentioned before, the cord of light that runs from the crown down through the body and into Mother Earth. And we're opening up those earth chakras through the lower portions of that cord as it runs down through the earth field of the earth to start to bring up more yummy, luscious, stable energy from Mother Earth into the physiologies. So important. And this is going to have a nice balancing effect for people in their reproductive systems and endocrine systems. I know the pituitary gland is up here in the head, and it's the overseer of the endocrine system, but it's good to have those energies actually speaking. The pituitary can speak to the rest of the endocrine system, but the glands of the body can also speak back to the pituitary. And this was one of the principles that came up. It was very interesting at the end of yesterday's webinar, is that the level of intelligence of our physiology that's connected to or associated with, responsible for intimacy, and this also very much ties into sexuality, and so is not an isolated structure. It tends to be more of a systemic structure in our system, which means it's at a very, very deep level of the energetic system of the body, because as we know, it expands, consciousness expands as we go down. So this systemic structure, which I had not seen before, but just to give the brief description, and as I'm doing so to kind of activate and wake it up, because we're going to come back to the endocrine system in just a second. It's like a matrix or a fabric or a web, like that. It's a form like that, like a web-like form. Think of it as a web-like form that it embodies or harbors energies of a particular intensity, which, if isolated into a particular spot, would simply overwhelm the entire system. And therefore, these energies cannot be isolated into a particular spot. They have to be a little bit spread out. They have to be spread through the system. So this area is doing a wake up. And I see it as a structure that sits at a very deep level of the physiology. And the energy that I see running through this particular area has a richness of color, has a richness of tapestry, of flavors of consciousness, which are beautiful and yummy. But we're also clearing out. There's also discord in that field. And this is interesting because I feel, as I'm closing that little magic box for a minute so I can see better, as we're working through it, again, it's a situation where some of the imbalances that are sitting in the physiology at that level are so intense that if we try to go in and work them in units, or if we try to pull it all out at once, it's too intense. But that because of the systemic nature of this particular area of the physiology, we could think of it as, I haven't defined it very well, let's think of it as a celestial body organ. I would call it an organ. And it's an organ kind of like a system, like the circulatory system, like that. Maybe we better think of it as a system rather than an organ. But it is a kind of a wholeness unto itself. And it has to do with the process, the field of intimacy. And in there, I am seeing discordant feelings clearing. But what's happening is it'll clear from like an area, and then the whole system readjusts. And then we'll clear a little bit more from another area, and then the whole system adjusts. So I feel as if the work that's being done in this particular area is very tender and very delicate, and is being executed with a great deal of love. And of course, the relationship between intimacy and love, or love and relationships, is so basic.